Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, we're we're going deep on a program in Arizona, and it's a lifeline really for young adults who are aging out of foster care.
Yeah, these are some of our most vulnerable young people. And, that transition to adulthood, it's tough for anyone, but without a strong support system. That's what we're talking about today.
So we're digging into how effectively Arizona's Department of Child Safety, their young adult program, is really supporting these young people as they try to make it on their own.
And we're coming at this from, well, the Arizona legislature actually requested this audit, so this isn't just a routine checkup. Someone important asked for this investigation.
Okay, so red flags right off the bat. What were they concerned about specifically?
So they wanted to know, how is DCS doing? Are they actually helping these young people transition to adulthood? Like finding housing, getting jobs, education, all those things that are already tough enough at 18.
Right, like, that's a really pivotal time for anyone, but imagine navigating that without, like, family to lean on.
Exactly. And that's really what this young adult program or YAP is supposed to be all about.
So how does YIP actually work?
Well, a key part is the Extended Foster Care Program, EFC.
Hmm.
Think about it. You're 18 and basically told you're on your own, even if you're not ready. EFC lets them stay in foster care voluntarily, but only until they turn 21.
So it's like a bit of a safety net, buys them some time,
Exactly, a chance to get on their feet.
but even with the extra time, they still need guidance, right?
Mhm.
Like someone in their corner.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where this new EFC Success Coaching Program comes in. It's brand new, launched in 2024.
Okay, new program. So tell me about these success coaches. Are we talking like life coaches, but for things like, I don't know, finding an apartment, landing a job?
That's a great way to put it. Think of them as mentors. They connect these young people with resources, teach them life skills, help them navigate being an adult.
That sounds like a much-needed lifeline. So what did the audit reveal about this coaching program? Was it a success right out of the gate?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest. The good news is they hit their deadlines for hiring the coaching contractors, which is a good first step. And it looks like they're using, some evidence-based methods in their program
Oh,
design.
there's always a but, isn't there?
Right. The audit uncovered some pretty concerning trends, too. Like, they found that a lot of these young adults in the program, they don't have proper transition plans.
Wait, seriously? Those roadmaps are supposed to be a thing, right?
Yeah, it's a federal requirement. But the audit found that, get this, 11 out of 15 randomly selected cases didn't have these plans at all.
Wow. So they're basically being sent out there without a compass.
And that puts them at a much higher risk of, well, you name it, homelessness, unemployment. It's setting them up for a really tough road.
That's just not okay. These are young people's lives we're talking about, not just check marks on a spreadsheet. So they're missing these essential plans. What else did the audit uncover?
So even when they did have plans, the audit found they were often, well, vague, incomplete. They were missing, like, the actual steps and resources to make the plan doable.
It's like having a map with the destination, but no roads marked.
No, exactly. It's like having the destination, but no directions to get there. And for a lot of these kids, they haven't had anyone to show them those steps, those life skills. So it's no wonder they're struggling.
Yeah, that's got to be so much harder. Okay, but let's talk about this success coaching program a bit more. It sounds really good in theory, but, is it actually working? Are they, like, keeping track of whether it's making a difference for these young adults?
So that's right where the audit, raised some eyebrows. They are tracking some things, some basic stuff, but they don't really have a good way to measure the, like, long-term impact of this whole program.
So it's like they're tracking how much they spend at the store, but not if they're actually getting, like, healthy food, if it's actually nourishing them.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. They can tell you how many coaching sessions happen, but not if those sessions actually led to, like, better outcomes. Like, did these kids find stable housing? Are they employed because of this? We don't know.
Okay, so we've got missing plans, vague plans, and no real way of knowing if this coaching is even working. What's the fix? What did the audit recommend they do?
Well, the Auditor General, they had a dozen recommendations, and it all comes down to, like, better planning, stronger oversight, and really figuring out a way to evaluate if the program is actually effective.
So basically tightening things up across the board. Can you give me an example? Like, what would that look like in real life?
Sure. One thing they recommended was to come up with a much more detailed plan for the coaching program itself. Like, what are the goals? What are the steps? Who's doing what? Getting everyone on the same page.
Right, because you can't just throw money at something and expect it to work. You need a strategy.
Exactly. And they also said DCS needs to do a better job of overseeing these coaching contractors. Like, it's not enough to just hope they're doing a good job, right?
Yeah.
They need to be checking in, making sure they're meeting the standards.
Accountability is what we're talking about here, right? Making sure these contractors are delivering on what they promised.
100%.
Yeah.
And that means making sure these success coaches, they aren't overloaded with too many cases. Because if they're stretched too thin, there's no way they can give each young person the attention they need.
Makes sense. Quality over quantity. Now, we talked about those transition plans earlier, or the lack of them, I should say. What did the audit say about that?
They were very clear about that. DCS has to develop those plans for every single young person in their care. And they need to start early, like 14 years old. And these can't be vague either. They need details, timelines, resources, the whole 9 yards.
So not just, get a job,
Yeah.
but like actual steps these kids can take, resources they can use. It's about giving them the tools to actually succeed.
That's it. And that brings us to what might be the most important recommendation, actually measuring if this whole thing is working. Like, are these young adults finding housing, getting jobs? Are they healthy? Those are the questions they need to be asking.
So it's not just about offering services, it's about making sure those services actually lead to a better life.
Right. Exactly. And to do that, they need to use data. They need to use research. The audit actually recommended that DCS works with the federal government, with Health and Human Services, to use this national database that tracks outcomes for young people leaving foster care so they can actually see what works, what doesn't.
Smart. Learning from what's already out there.
Yeah.
Okay, but real talk for a second. Are we just talking about paperwork here? Or will these changes actually make a difference in the lives of these young people?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? It's still early. DCS says they'll make these changes, but you know how it goes. Saying it and doing it are two different things.
True. Actions speak louder than words. So what's next? Is anyone holding their feet to the fire to make sure this actually happens?
Thankfully, yes. The Auditor General's office is going to follow up with DCS in 6 months to see what they've done, so there will be a progress report.
Okay, so the clock is ticking. But let's zoom out for a sec. This audit, it focused on DCS, but this feels bigger than one agency,
Absolutely. This is about us, about the kind of society we want to be. Do we want to leave these young people behind? Or do we want to give them the support they need? That's what it comes down to.
So what can we do? What can we do as individuals?
Honestly, just knowing about this, that's a huge first step. Educate yourself about what these young people are up against. And then, there are tons of great organizations out there doing good work. Support them. Donate, volunteer, even just spreading the word helps.
Right, because we can't fix what we don't acknowledge, right? Okay, so awareness is key. What else?
And honestly, sometimes just being there for someone makes all the difference. Mentoring, offering advice, just listening. These things are huge for a young person who might not have anyone else.
It's about treating them like people with dreams and goals, because they have those, right?
Absolutely. And we need to make sure they have a chance to achieve those dreams. It's on all of us.
Okay, so we've really unpacked this audit, talked about the recommendations, and even, I think, touched on something bigger here about who we are as a society. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to dig into those specific challenges that young people face when they age out of foster care. You mentioned a national database earlier. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's the National Youth in Transition Database, and it's got a ton of information about what these young people go through all across the country. And honestly, some of it is pretty alarming.
So we're talking about the National Youth in Transition Database, right?
Yeah.
This treasure trove of information on what young people are dealing with after foster care.
Yeah, it gives us this nationwide view, and it can be kind of eye-opening because the trends, well, they're kind of alarming.
Okay, so lay it on us. What kind of challenges are we talking about here?
Well, think about healthcare, something most of us don't think twice about. A lot of these young people, they age out of foster care without consistent access to medical care. In fact, according to data submitted by Arizona DCS, only 55% of 17-year-olds leaving foster care had Medicaid and 80% had medical insurance.
Wow, that's a big deal. We're not talking about just, minor stuff here. These young adults, they often have really specific health needs, both, physical and mental, because of what they went through in the system.
Right, and those challenges, they don't just disappear. They can make it harder to stay in school, find a job.
So they're aging out, but they might not be ready to support themselves. What about jobs? Is that a major hurdle?
It's huge. I mean, finding a job is already hard enough, right? But imagine doing it with anyone to help you navigate those first job interviews or even give you a good reference.
Right, they're kind of on their own.
Exactly, and the numbers show it. According to data submitted by Arizona DCS, only 3% of 17-year-olds and 39% of 19-year-olds reported having full-time employment, and even part-time employment was low. 14% for 17-year-olds and 30% for 19-year-olds.
Those are tough numbers. And without a steady income, I mean, how are you supposed to make ends meet, let alone, like, build a stable future?
It's nearly impossible.
And that brings us to, well, another basic need, housing. Are these young adults able to find somewhere safe and affordable to live?
Unfortunately, that's a big problem. Housing instability is a huge issue. The data actually shows that 38% of 17-year-olds and 21% of 19-year-olds had experienced homelessness. And again, that's just what's reported, so the real numbers are probably even higher.
It's like we're setting them up to fail.
It's a systemic problem. Programs like the DCS Young Adult Program, they're a start, but we need to do more, a lot more.
So what now? What can we do as, like, regular people to make a difference for these young adults?
It starts with knowing about it, you know? We have to talk about these issues, make sure people understand what these young people are up against, because you can't fix something if you don't know it's broken.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind doesn't work here. So awareness is step one. Then what?
Support the organizations that are already doing the work, you know? Donate, volunteer, even just talking about it with your friends and family, it all helps.
So roll up our sleeves and get involved.
Yeah.
But it's not just about money, right? We can all make a difference just by being there for a young person.
100%. Mentoring, just listening, these things can be huge for someone who might not have that kind of support.
It's about seeing them, seeing their humanity, their potential, because they have that, just like anyone else.
Absolutely. And we owe it to them to make sure they have a chance to reach their full potential.
That's a great place to leave it. This has been, well, a deep dive, for sure. But even though it's a tough topic, I think there's also hope here. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.